Hey, it's Johnny Farace, and this is You Can't Play Boxing, a weekly show from ChampionsHeart, where we will hear from super fans to superstars with their take on the world of boxing, inside and outside of the ring. So let's get them up. It's go time! Hey, this is Johnny. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that I really appreciate you listening in, and I have love for everybody, and I hope everyone is doing well during this time in COVID, and just to let you know, there's always brightness on the other side of darkness. So let's roll. This is episode 1 of season 1. And this episode is going to be a little different in that I am going to give you a background on myself and how I got here and what gives me the right to talk boxing. So let's go. Hey, what's up, guys? If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. So, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right? Here we go. So my name is Johnny Farace, formerly known as Johnny Schultz, and I will give you detail on how exactly I found my father after 50 years. That will be another bonus episode. At any rate, I moved from Long Island, New York to Mitchell, South Dakota when I was just 3 years old. So in elementary school, when I was there, the kids in South Dakota had a way of identifying me as the Mexican or the taco bender or the immigrant. Meanwhile, I'm Italian, so obviously that didn't sit too well with me, and that led to my first schoolyard brawl in about the 5th grade. I remember it took place in a little park called Eugene Field. Actually, it was called Pioneer Park. The elementary school was Eugene Field Elementary. I remember it was in the 5th grade. After school, we all met up at the park. I was so enraged at these kids that were calling me these names, Taco Bender. I hated that one. So I went ahead and I beat the holy living daylights out of this kid named Lonnie. When I was done beating him up, I took a shoe and I threw it over the fence. That wasn't very nice, but I did it. So as I walked home to our trailer park, I went in the house after the fight and I had blood all over my shirt from the fight. My stepfather at the time was a former amateur boxer himself, and he saw the blood on me and obviously inquired and asked what that was about, and I told him I'd gotten to a little schoolyard brawl, and I thought I did pretty good. So, the next day when I came home, I saw a poster on the refrigerator of the local boxing team. And my stepfather at the time said, you like to fight, huh? So here we go. So, my first introduction to boxing was in about 1979. Walked into this boxing gym that was in the basement of this place called the Corn Palace. You'll have to Google the Corn Palace. It's a pretty crazy structure in the middle of South Dakota, made of corn. Yeah. So this boxing gym was in the basement of the Corn Palace. All the kids were in there. They were working out, extremely intimidating. If you'd ever been in a boxing gym, you know that walking into the boxing gym for the first time is intimidating. But I instantly felt at home when I walked in there, when otherwise I was going to school and I was very much alienated from the rest of the kids and the school itself is the way I felt anyway. So as I started boxing more, that was in, I believe, 1979. I had my first competitive match when I was in the 5th grade. So fast forward through elementary school, through junior high school up into high school. I ended up boxing for 8 years, ended up with about 45 amateur fights. I won the state silver gloves in 1983. And 1983 advanced to the National Silver Gloves Tournament in Peoria, Illinois, where I won the first round and I got the holy living daylights beat out of me in the second round from this animal from Chicago. Thank you very much, by the way, for that. And that was about my junior year in high school. And a lot was going on in the background, and I was kind of coming into my rebellious years. And the boxing team at that time became disinteresting to me, unfortunately. I then gravitated towards music. I grabbed my guitar and an amp, and I headed to South Florida to become a rock star. More on that later. March 17th, 1989. I landed in South Florida on a Greyhound bus with a cowboy friend of mine from South Dakota, $137 in my pocket, and the dream of being a huge rock star. Unfortunately, not exactly what happened. Fast forward to 2003, February 14th. My son, Jordan, was born. Greatest day of my life. Changed my life forever. Those of you that are parents will understand, and they know what I'm talking about. I had worked my way up in a food distribution company from a driver to an operations manager, and then had the opportunity to take the whole company over as an owner. Unfortunately, soon after, we were met with many hurricanes here in South Florida that ended up taking away a bunch of small businesses that included most of my customers. So I had to make an adjustment. I made the painstaking decision to fold up that company and go ahead and try a new industry, which was physician recruiting. A friend of mine had started a company in physician recruiting and was doing very well, so I went ahead and joined that company. And then something else crazy happened. I saw myself naked. Yeah, I saw a fat ass. I was looking at myself for the first time, 207 pounds, and I could not believe what I saw in front of me. I was super depressed, overweight, my business failed, and I found myself pretty much at the bottom of bottom. And then I met New York Danny Stash, who reintroduced me into the sport of boxing. And once again, boxing saved my life. Thank you, Danny Stash. We stumbled upon Punch Fitness in Deerfield Beach. Just happened to be the training facility for the notorious Don King and his stable of fighters in Deerfield Beach, Florida. Wow, what a coincidence to happen upon one of the most active training facilities in the sport of boxing with their stable of fighters. I was watching fighters like Corey Spinks, Hector Camacho, Miguel Cotto, Ricardo Mayorga. All these trainers are training right here in this gym, right next to me. How inspiring that was. Not only the pro fighters, there was a huge stable of amateur fighters that were all training themselves to win the Golden Gloves with aspirations of going on to be pros themselves. This experience excited me so much, reinvigorated the love that I had for the sport as a child, gave me new life into an otherwise dark place I found myself. At my fattest, I weighed 207 pounds. I've never been that heavy ever in my whole life. But I found myself there, and I found myself in a great position in this boxing gym to be able to take the weight off. So I got right after it, hyper-focused, and started training like I was training for a world championship fight. I incorporated the Atkins diet to start, and the pounds started shredding off me. I went from 207 pounds all the way down to 141 pounds in just 7 months with boxing training. I was flipping through the new Ringside magazine looking for a new pair of boxing gloves. I turned the page and holy shit, I saw a picture of the most beautiful belt I've ever seen. And in the caption, it read, "Over 35, you can still box amateurs." My eyes lit up. I just turned 37 years old, was getting in the greatest shape I'd ever been in, and was starting to do pretty good in the boxing gym. I took that picture of that belt, I cut it out. I put it up in my little cubicle above my computer screen, and I looked at that every single day for 8 months. I trained my ass off. I was at the gym every night. Every morning I was running. I used to go out at lunchtime and do sprints on the stadium next door and the stairs. Did everything I could. Nothing was going to stop me from winning that belt. Over 35, no one over 35 can beat me. I got this. So, I started training really hard. The tournament was in Kansas City, August 2008. I had been training with the local acclaimed boxing coach here at Punch Fitness, Billy Patton, Coach Billy, who was always a great inspiration for me in the beginning of my master's boxing career. Had a lot to do with setting me up and getting me back into the real fundamentals of boxing. He was trained by most of the greats there in Philadelphia, the infamous Willie Reddish and company. So Billy did a lot to get me set ready for that tournament in Kansas City. Unfortunately, he could not go there with me. He was also working with Samuel Peters at the time, who was over in Austria, I believe, getting ready to fight Klitschko, something along the lines of that. Once again, how the world of boxing on an amateur level and a professional level always cross. So here I am in Kansas City on my own, going to win this tournament. I did not have a coach. But that's okay. Like anyone with a champion's heart would do, they went and found one. I just happened upon Elite USA boxing Coach Jimmy Gomes, who was there with elite amateur boxer Joseph Allegle. We became close friends, and Jim said that he would help me out, work my corner. I was super excited, not only to be at the tournament, but to know that I had a solid corner of an elite coach in my corner, and a stablemate of elite boxer, Joseph Allegle, who was a super cool dude and helped pass the time while we were waiting for our fights. Well, 2008, August, I won the Ringside World Championship in Kansas City. Changed my life forever. Boxing saved my life. I could say that many times because it's so easy to say because it's happened so many different times. So when I got back from winning that tournament, I ran into a friend of mine on Atlantic Avenue in Delray Beach who happened to be a writer for 15rounds.com, which is ran by Mark Abrams, who is in the Media Boxing Hall of Fame. He is one of the top media personalities and media writers in the world of boxing. And on the strength of my relationship that I had with my friend Steve D'Amato, introduced me to Mark and gave me a job as a boxing writer. From that point on, that was in August of 2008, I have then went to every single live boxing event in South Florida since then as a scribe, and I write a recap of the event. So I've been to probably about 150 shows nationwide, professional shows, that I've sat ringside and analyzed each fight. What an amazing front row seat to the sport that I loved. My very first fight that I covered was at the PGA in West Palm Beach, Florida. The very first match was Isaiah Thomas, who not the basketball player, the boxer, from Detroit, just came out of the amateurs, was making his pro debut. He knocked his guy out in about 52 seconds. The guy fell right in front of me. I think some of the sweat landed on my laptop. They counted him out, but that guy did not get up and sit up for about 4 minutes. And I thought to myself, you can't play boxing. After winning the 2008 Ringside World Championships, I went on actually a boxing tour all over the country. I went to New York City and trained at Gleasons. I went to Detroit. I went to Los Angeles and trained at Wildcard. I was in Chicago. I went to Minneapolis and trained in boxing gyms. I went to Tucson, Arizona. Went everywhere I could to train with as many different boxing style coaches that I could to absorb it all. Along the way, I've been able to develop my own style and meet some amazing people I now call my close friends in the sport and in life itself. I've won 11 master titles along the way and had the opportunity to spar amazing greats such as Hector Camacho, Corey Spinks,
I've watched Teofimo Lopez go from an 8-year-old little boy shadowboxing at the Golden Gloves in 2008 into a world champion that he is today. I've had the opportunity to be a professional boxing manager to a young and upcoming fighter over the course of 7 fights. I had a boxing radio show with New York Danny Stash called the Sunday Sizzler that was very successful for about a year back in 2011. I've done everything in a boxing event that you could possibly think of. Everything from being a coach, to being a second in the corner, to playing the national anthem, to holding the spit bucket, to cleaning up afterwards, to being a ring announcer. I've done it all. All of my friends are people in the world of boxing, and they are all great people. And I find myself as being one strong character that was earned through the hard work and discipline I learned through boxing. So I wanted to give you a little bit background and let you know who the fuck is Johnny Farace. I'm Johnny Farace. So thank you for listening, and I'll look forward to having you along for the ride on You Can't Play Boxing, a show by ChampionsHeart.
Well, there you go, at the very first episode of You Can't Play Boxing. Hope you enjoyed hearing a little bit about how I got here and my life in boxing, and I look forward to hearing from you. So please, whatever platform you're listening on, please hit that like button, drop some comments, let me know what you're thinking, and listen in for the next episode as we're going to start talking boxing on You Can't Play Boxing.